This is Lead with Love, and I'm your host, Cynthia Iorio. Welcome to episode 7, Blessings on Your Journey. Blessings on your journey is something that someone told me back in 2015 when I was quite a few months into caring for my mother. I was at a book signing for a girlfriend of mine, and at this book signing, my friend's sister and I were talking about my mother's experience, and my friend's sister turned to me and said, "Well, I wish you blessings on your journey." And I looked at her and I just kind of gave her this blank stare. And she says, "Blessings on your journey means just wishing you moments to be able to be grateful for and where you feel blessed in this otherwise crazy time." In the moment where I was on my journey, I was like, yeah, right. There is no way I could feel grateful and find blessings for anything right now. I'm on a leave of absence from work. I'm trying to figure out how to make sure that my mother's oxygen levels stay high, that her medications are working well, that I'm feeding her the right foods, that we're giving her the right level of sunshine, that I'm trying to take care of myself. What is there to be grateful for? What blessings can I have? And she explained to me, she said, a blessing could be a parking spot in front of the hospital. It could be all green lights on the way to pick up some food. It could be a smile that makes you feel in the moment with the person that you're caring for, that just for a split second, all that exists is the love that you have for one another in that moment. Could be anything. And right around that time, my mother started a gratitude practice. And every morning she asked that I join her in prayer, and we would pray for other people who are maybe going through challenging times. And then we would acknowledge and be grateful for the wonderful things that we had to be grateful for, like sunshine, like the rain, which is completely contradictory to the sunshine. But let's say we had sun for a few days and we needed some rain. It allowed us to snuggle together, for a great cup of coffee, for a really nice person that we had met in the hospital cafeteria the day before who made us laugh. That practice of starting every day with something to be thankful for, along with the chirpings of blessings on your journey in the back of my mind, really helped to reset and really helped to bring me back down to earth. Now listen, I know that for some of you right now going through this, it really feels like there's nothing to be grateful for, especially if you've been thrust into this role and it's one that is causing you immense stress and exhaustion. I've said this in a social group recently where I said how, grateful I am for the experience I had to have cared for both of my parents, how it's important to look for your blessings on your journey. And somebody snapped back and said, that's extreme toxic positivity, and that's unhelpful, and this is very, very difficult. And I get that. I totally understand that. But what's the alternative? To sit in it and not try and find a moment of reprieve? For me, gratitude and looking for those blessings, which I actually do on a daily basis today, not in an active caregiving role, is survival. It helps me make sense of the world when things get too heavy. It helps to remind me that as the fires rage around me, there are still things to appreciate. I think about a message I received from a girlfriend today. Her father was just diagnosed with cancer. And she sent me this message and she said, is it just about watching them get weaker? I was immediately taken back to that time of fear and exhaustion and panic and desperation of wanting to help someone that I loved. And while there is a lot of that, there is so much more. And so I'm going to ask each of you this question. Kathy, I'll start with you. How would you answer her?
I would say she's not looking for my answer. She doesn't even want an answer. She wants to be able to speak out the question. She wants to be able to voice the fear, recognizing that I can't fix that is maybe what she needs, to just keep talking that out, to just keep processing what that feels like without anyone flipping the story yet. If I'm talking to my children, if I'm talking to a friend, there's such that rush to try to comfort, to try to come up with the balm. But most of the time, in our training, what we are told is people need to talk. They don't need your answers. They need someone to sit with them as they figure out the question and wrestle with the answer, and to know that they're not alone in the process.
So when you first asked this, my initial thought was like, I didn't know how to verbalize it the way Kathy did, but it was, the person asking this is sitting with this fear because it's scary, and that I don't know that I would be able to give her an answer that didn't make me just sit with her in her grief and her fear. Like, I would just want to sit there with her and not try to reframe her perspective in any way other than to say, we are here, and letting them talk. In some of my personal experiences with grief, just having somebody not try, like you said, Kathy, maybe like just having somebody sit there and not try and flip it, like almost like maybe not that she's asking a rhetorical question, but she's stating her fear of the unknown, and fear maybe of the helplessness that you feel in that moment. So just simply being present and saying non-verbally, maybe like, you're not alone, and this is hard as hard can be, and it's not fair. You're going to get through it, and it's still just going to be hard and not fair. I don't want to say you'll be stronger at the end because it's so cliche, and then I'm trying to ice something. But Kathy, you just helped kind of frame that feeling that I got when I imagined somebody sitting in one of our chairs asking that, just thinking like, I'm here, and letting them keep speaking to try and talk through it.
That was Kathy Bohley and Grace Chapman from the James Oncology Center in Ohio. I interviewed them for this podcast because, as I've said many times, this is a universal experience for many caregivers, and I was really curious to hear thoughts and perspectives from people outside of Canada. One of the things that really touched me, especially about what we just heard, was the tenderness with which Kathy and Grace spoke. Now, Kathy is a chaplain at the James Oncology Center, and Grace is a caregiver and a nurse at the center as well. Their main responsibility is to sit with people, patients and their caregivers, in these very trying times and these moments, and offer them guidance as well as insight and perspective to not just their medical journey, but also their spiritual journey. And regardless of your religion or your faith or what you believe in this world, the reality is that these types of experiences really call into question the beliefs that we have, and the beliefs that we have about our lives and about what it all means. And what is really special to me is that this is also acknowledged by the medical community. One of the reasons why we are so overwhelmed and we are so exhausted and we are so stressed out is because, especially in Canada, and I can't speak for what it's like in the United States, but especially in Canada, our medical system is completely taxed. The medical system and the disorganization, just the fact that it is completely maxed out to capacity, means that we have an added level of injustice and an added level of stress on our shoulders. And that doesn't help. But we really mustn't confuse the medical system with the people in the system. And I truly believe that, I choose to believe that the people who go into the medical profession go into a profession where, by virtue of the job, they are there to help and heal people. I truly believe that these people are there and are just as much taxed and stressed and victims of the system as we, the patients, are. This was reinforced for me throughout this entire series, throughout all of the interviews that I've done with people in the healthcare field and the medical field. And a really great example of this was when I asked Sabrina Proper, who you'll recall is a psychotherapist and a social worker, to share a story with me about a family that she's helped. Her eyes, her face just lit up with joy and gratitude for the impact she was able to have on this woman you're about to hear about and her children.
Okay, so I have a mother. She had children later on in life, and she ended up having 2 children. She's a single mother, both with very, very complex needs. One with autism, who has quite a few higher needs, like higher support needs. And then another child who I think we just found out was diagnosed with autism, but more than that, has a lot of medical complications. She was born very prematurely. When I met this mom during COVID, they had not left the house for like 2 years because she did not feel capable of leaving the house and bringing her kids out by herself independently, and also low income, did not have the funds for respite care. We set her up we have a school within our community called KCC. It's pretty amazing. And I said to her, like, this is where your children need to be. Like, this is where they need to be. And connected her kids. Like, if I tell you, like, for now a year and a half, her kids have been attending this school. Her kids are thriving. She regularly calls me on like a weekly basis telling me how happy she is. And the amount of support she also receives there is also tremendous. Like those things, I was like, oh my gosh, like this woman's life has changed as a result. And she'll say the same thing, just as a result of the connections that she's made within the community.
One of the most beautiful things that I had on my experience were the people that I was able to meet in this system and the relationships that I was able to make with medical professionals, with nurses and doctors and receptionists and people who day in and day out are there watching others suffer and doing their very, very best to ease that pain. And this is a blessing that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I can see the images of the people right now who made all the difference in the experience that I had. And so I encourage you to look for the blessings in those people who become a part of your extended family now by virtue of having to care for the person that you're caring for, because they can make all the difference. If you like what you heard today, please follow, rate, or subscribe to Lead with Love on the podcast platform of your choosing. Be sure to check Lead with Love out on Patreon, where you can subscribe for exclusive access to extended interviews and behind-the-scenes content. We'll see you back here next week.